Now we'll go ahead with our scripture reading, and it's in Proverbs chapter 10, verse 22. It says, "The blessing of the Lord makes one rich, and he adds no sorrow with it." At this time, we'll go ahead and turn her over to Harold.
Brandon, you got me on here? I think so. Can everybody hear me? Okay, good. All right. Oh, good. Let's go back one. Whoa. Can you go, Brandon, to the first slide? Okay. Oh, there we go. There we go. I got my little clicker today. It's funny when he asks everybody to sing, and I was like, it's already too late. I was already singing back there. I was like, I don't need an invitation. I just sing on my own. People have been singing special music, and I'll be in the back, and I'll start singing, and Wendy will be like, "Shh, be quiet. It's not your song." Like, I can sing if I want. Anyway, my sermon today is on work. And work, as we'll find out, is a gift from God. So during my life, I've had a few different jobs. From my youth, I've mowed yards, I've raked leaves, I've shoveled snow. We had this little neighbor lady who lived across the street and up, and I'll never forget, it was 90 some degrees in July, and she had this huge hat on, every bit of 80 some years old. Like, she held the lawnmower, the push mower, right here. This is how tall she was. She was so short. She was like a little kid. And my mom, I remember being in the house, and she comes in, she goes, "Harold, get over there and mow that yard." I'm like, "Yes, ma'am." And I did. I went over there, and I was like, "My mom said I got to mow your yard," and I just took it from her. I just took it right from her. She's just standing there looking at me like, "You little snot-nosed kid." But no, she was fine. I mean, she needed to go into the house. She was at risk of heat stroke so badly. So I just went over there, took it from her. Mom said I got to do this. I've worked at, I've split wood. I don't know if I ever got paid for that. That was at my uncle's house. And we would go over to visit, and he had a wood splitter in his backyard. And my brother and I would just go back there, "Can we go split wood?" Yeah, go ahead. So we'd split wood, and he had a basement. He's like, "Just throw it down there." So we'd just chuck it down in his basement. And I love that. That was so much fun. I worked as a soda jerk in the back of a pharmacy. I didn't wear the little hat though, but I did make, milkshakes and malts. You name it, I've made it. We had the old Coke machine where you poured the syrup in and it mixed the carbonated water with it. It was interesting. The pharmacist would actually, if somebody would come in with a stomach ache, he would send over a bottle, and we would just pour straight Coke syrup in there, and they would give them that for an upset stomach. I know. I'm like, okay, I'll try it. And so I did. I'm like, oh, this is disgusting, but way too much. But it was good for an upset stomach. So I did that, and I still remember the one thing that I was taught by Emmydale McQuarrie. She was an older lady that worked there, and they would make their own tuna salad sandwiches, egg salad. They would have specials for the day for the lunch. And I'd like, "Hey, what do I do with this?" And she's like, "You know what? If in doubt, throw it out." I'm like, I still remember that to this day. That one phrase she told me: "If in doubt, throw it out." So she did teach me something. So that was a fun job. So then I also worked at a delivering newspapers. So I would deliver newspapers after school during the day. And I know what you think. I'm on my bicycle. Oh, no, 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 no. I was in my car at the time. We had over 400 customers, and it would take us like almost 3 hours of driving around Jasonville, throwing papers out the window, nonstop. Yeah, it paid for college. It was not a little 20 people down the street kind of paper out. No, 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 no. This was an operation. My mom and I, bless her heart, she helped me do it, but yeah, it was an operation. I worked as a pizza delivery guy, so that was interesting because we were at the Pizza Villa one day and with my parents, and the lady that was the waitress was in charge because the owners were on vacation, and she's like, hey, do you want a job? I'm like, sure. What do you want me to do? She goes, can you deliver pizzas? I'm like, yeah, when do you want me to start? She goes, right now. I need someone to take this pizza to such and such's house right now. I'm like, and being on the paper route, I knew the city of Jasonville. I knew it. So I'm like, okay. So I took the pizza and I started working there from that day. Ended up becoming a cook and actually doing all that stuff. So that was fun. I also worked on a trash truck. I wish Bob was here, because I worked on a trash truck for an entire summer, and that was fun. They would come pick me up in the morning, and we would drive around Bloomfield, Linton, Swit City, and then we would go to the dump and throw it all off the back of the truck. So that was an interesting summer. That was fun. And then I finally became a lab tech. I went to school, became a lab tech. So at one time I had 3 jobs. I was the pizza guy, the newspaper guy, and the soda jerk. So I actually had 3. Oh, and my parents owned a gas station. So I also kind of did that whenever I didn't have anything else. Oh, yeah, and I mowed yards at the same time. So I was a busy kid. I loved it. I loved doing work. So I've learned some valuable lessons with any job. You should always learn a lesson from any job you have. So the one lesson, and I have it written down, work hard and do your best. Okay, that should be a given. If someone hires you to do a job, they're putting trust in you, and you should do your best for them, right? The other one is be kind and show mercy, especially if you're dealing with customers. Had this one lady who was not well off. She still had an outhouse, okay? That's how poor she was, okay? But she lived in town, and she would come by the drugstore once a day, and she would sit there and she would drink coffee. Coffee was 25 cents with like 2 refills or something. You know, this was not back in the 40s, it was back in the 80s, but whatever. It was a quarter then, and it was the little white ceramic coffee cups, and she would sit there and she would drink coffee. And that was her kind of getting out time. But that's all she could afford. But that was her special time to be served. And I wasn't going to complain about that. I served her and showed her kindness and mercy, and she would talk to me, and I would talk to her. You know, I was very respectful. I wasn't going to make her feel any less that she didn't deserve what she deserved. So if you're dealing with the customers, have mercy, be kind. Don't judge someone by the way they look when they come in. Still show them kindness and mercy. They deserve it. And thirdly, find something about your job that you like. There has to be something about your job that you like. Granted, there are no perfect jobs, but find something. Is it maybe the job itself? Is it maybe your coworkers that you work with? I've had some jobs, I loved going to work because of the coworkers were so fun. I've had jobs where I've been given the freedom to do things, and I loved having that creativity or ability to do things on my own that's been given to me. So I've always found something in one of those jobs that I liked. And I told this story to Brandon last night. One of my mowing jobs, that I had was this one lady, and this is something I kind of learned. She hired me to mow her yard. So she was one of my mom's friends, so I go over there. It's a little yard, so I just take the push mower in the back of the truck, and I go in there, and I go into this little fenced-in backyard, and there's dog poo all over the yard. And I'm like, oh, okay. So I go grab sticks, and I start putting sticks in all the dog poo in the backyard. And I'm like, how am I supposed to mow this? I'm not going to mow through all this. So I left, and I went back to my mom. I'm like, Mom, how was I supposed to do this? Was she supposed to pick this up before I got there, or was I early, No, she had expected me to pick it up. And I'm like, but I wasn't hired to pick it up. I was hired to mow the yard. So the lady calls my mom, and she's like, why are there all these sticks in my backyard stuck up? So literally like 60 plus sticks just sticking up in her backyard. Looked like little flags. So she knew where to pick all the poop up from. But again, I learned some people's expectations of you are not always, they're implied. It was implied that I was going to also clean that up. But so I learned that lesson, that sometimes the job is there, but maybe there's something you need to do in addition to what you've been asked to do. So don't just take your job at face value, okay? We as humans were made to work. Our muscles were made so that the more we use them, the bigger they get, right? And if left in like a cast or a sling for too long, your muscles will atrophy. They will get smaller. Your body will start to break them down and use them for energy. A few years ago had ACL surgery. I tore my ACL playing softball, and I couldn't move my leg for weeks. And it visibly got smaller to the point where when I went to physical therapy, they had to attach electrodes and shock my muscles to get them to work again. Because they're like, well, tighten your muscles up. I'm like, I am. They're like, well, nothing's happening. So they actually had to put electrodes on, and like I had a few spark plugs that weren't working, right? And it's like, oh, it's not there. So they had to actually shock my muscles in my legs to get them firing again. So we are meant to use our muscles to do work. Genesis 2:15 says, oh, where's my little clicker? Genesis 2:15 says, then the Lord God took man and put him in the Garden of Eden to tend and keep it. God gave us a job to do, didn't he? From the beginning. We were given a job to do in the most perfect environment we could ever be in. Think about that. This was a perfect environment, and we were given a job. So what does that tell you about the importance of doing a job, right? In Patriarchs and Prophet, I'm going to be referring to this a lot. Dina got me started on this, Patriarchs and Prophets, so I've just been devouring that book. Love it. Ellen White tells us, to the dwellers in Eden was committed the care of the garden to dress and keep it. Their occupation was not wearisome, but pleasant and invigorating. God appointed labor as a blessing to man, to occupy his mind, to strengthen his body, and to develop his faculties. I look at that as like troubleshooting, like, okay, how am I going to fix this? In mental and physical activity, Adam found one of the highest pleasures of his holy existence. So, please do not mistake or misinterpret what I'm calling work, okay? Work or labor comes in all forms, okay? So from driving a truck, being a nurse, being a stay-at-home mom, trust me, if you've done that for a few weeks, you understand what work is. Let me tell you. A stay-at-home mom Stay-at-home dad. That's even starting to be a thing now, being a stay-at-home dad. A gardener, factory worker, custodian, farmer, minister, a waitress, whatever your work you are given, count it as a blessing from God. Proverbs, I hope this goes to Proverbs. Yes, Proverbs 10:22 says, "The blessings of the Lord make one rich, and he adds no sorrow with it." Not rich as in monetary, right? Work is a blessing from the Lord. It will make you a richer person, as in richer in blessings, right? The blessings you give and make you rich. As with all things the Lord has blessed us with, Satan has perverted it, hasn't he? Everything, every blessing we've given, Satan has tried to pervert it in both directions, right? In both extremes. So we're gonna talk about that. So let's look at the extreme where some hold the idea of not working as the ultimate in luxury, right? Where all you do is lie around the pool all day, where servants wait on you hand and foot, and no demand is too outlandish, right? We've seen that in TV and in movies. In pop culture nowadays, right? We see that. We see where some of these like movie stars and celebrities end up with multiple divorces, right? Alcohol and drug abuse, until they either lose their lives or their mind and body are destroyed, right? That pathway has been perverted, that you deserved to have that type of lifestyle. That is not what was promised to you. To not have any activity, to not use your body or your mind is the pathway to destruction. So even in retirement, we need something to strengthen our mind and our bodies. How often do you see men who have worked hard all their lives succumb to a heart attack after only a year of retirement? We see it all the time, especially at the hospital. You see these guys come in to the ER and they're like, "Oh my goodness, he just retired and he just had this horrible heart attack." Well, the problem is some of these guys keep feeding their bodies like they're working 40 hours a week and they're not, right? So these guys that are used to just, wolfing the calories down because they're manual labor, and then all of a sudden they're doing nothing but sitting on their tushies for 8 hours a day thinking they're living the life. They're not. They're taking their own lives. You need to do something, but also the intake of food needs to accompany the output of energy, right? So you need to kind of adjust on both sides. In the Ministry of Healing, yes, page 156, action is the law of our being. Every organ of the body has its appointed work, upon the performance of which its development and strength depend. The normal action of all the organ gives strength and vigor, while the tendency of disuse is toward decay and death. Inactivity is a fruitful cause of disease, right? We got to move our bodies. We've got to move our bodies. Even in retirement, you've got to move your bodies. You've got to stay active. You can't just sit there like a bump on a log. Right there. Inactivity is a fruitful cause of disease, right? And we see that people now have that disease, don't we? Because their idea of work stops at the time clock. Boom, I'm done. No, you still got 8 more hours before you go to bed. Time to do some more. Time to do something. Don't stop. In Genesis 3, 17 through 19, I think that's supposed to say then. To Adam he said, because you have heeded the voice of your wife and have eaten from the tree of which I commanded you, saying, you shall not eat of it, cursed is the ground for your sake. In toil you shall eat of it. All the days of your life, both thorns and thistles, it shall bring forth to you. And you shall eat the herb of the field in the sweat of your face. You shall eat bread till you return to the ground. For out of it you were taken, for dust you are, and to dust you shall return. Cursed is the ground for your sake. And I was like, what does that mean? White tells us. Love it. Love patriarchs and prophets. Anyway, so let's go. Let's go to patriarchs and prophets. As a result of his disobedience, he was driven from his beautiful home, forced to struggle with the stubborn soil to gain his daily bread. That very labor, although widely different from his present occupation in the garden, was a safeguard against temptation and a source of happiness. Work can give you a source of happiness. Labor can make you happy. When you work towards something and accomplish something, it can make you happy. And it's a safeguard against temptation. The saying, idle hands are the devil's workshop, right? We've heard that, right? Right there. Safeguard against temptation. Because even though he was working in the garden, how much was he really working, you know? I think he was idle quite a bit of time. But, you know, he had a perfect body, so he didn't have to work too hard. But right there, it's a safeguard against temptation and a source of happiness. Those who regard work as a curse, attended though it be with weariness and pain, are cherishing an error. The rich often look down with contempt upon the working classes, but this is wholly at variance with God's purpose in creating man. What are the possessions of even the most wealthy in comparison with the heritage given to the lordly Adam? Yet Adam was not to be idle. So this brings us to the other end of Satan's perversion of work, is the workaholic, right? Someone who that's all they do 24/7 is work, 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 right? They use work as a way or means to obtain vast amounts of wealth or power, right? They look at it as a way to get power mostly. Don't get me wrong, being successful is not what I'm talking about here. Making your work your God is what I'm talking about here, okay? And people do that. People make their work their God. So the error comes into play when you sacrifice your wife and kids, right? Your family. You sacrifice your family to gain this wealth and power. You sacrifice your humanity. How many dishonest people have we seen in this country just to gain wealth and power, right? This is where the Sabbath comes into the picture, where we stop our task and focus on the God who gave us work as a blessing to begin with, right? So Sabbath is a hard stop. Boom, you're done. Okay? It's no longer about you. Let's focus on me, right? So let's take your gaze upon your work back to God who gave you that work, right? If you don't understand the work that you are given is being given to you by God, then you will never see it as a blessing, right? So think about that. The work you are given, whatever job you have, has been given to you by God to be a blessing to you, right? To teach you something, for you to be, maybe to be a blessing to others, to be a minister to others. It's a blessing to you, whatever work you're given. So we acknowledge, as when we take a break from the Sabbath, is where we acknowledge our Creator and break from our work just as He did. So if you cannot stop and take a break from your work and acknowledge what God helped you create, you are failing to acknowledge His goodness. Understand? So in Ellen White's Patriarchs and Prophets, So, what are the possessions of even the most wealthy in comparison with the heritage given to the lordly Adam? Yet Adam was not to be idle. Our Creator, who understands what is for man's happiness, appointed Adam his work. The true joy of life is found only by the working men and women. So let's just stop there. The angels are diligent workers. They are ministers of God to the children of men. The Creator has prepared no place for the stagnating practice of indolence. I love that word stagnating, because that's what we do. When we stop working, when we stop being productive, we start stagnating, right? And we just saw that that's disease. That's disease setting in. Your bodies were meant to move. How many of you saw the article in Time a few years ago about the blue zones out in Walla Walla, Washington? Right, Loma Linda, Washington. They have one of the greatest numbers of centenarians there ever was. I saw the video. There was an online thing about it. This little old lady, I mean, bless her heart, she was pumping her own gas, driving the car. She went to exercise every day. She was busy. She was 98 years old, and she was still driving a car, fully capable of taking care of herself in all facets of her life. 98 years old, and had no end in sight of when she was going to stop. We have to claim God's promise that if we keep moving, He will keep us healthy, right? Everyone likes to feel useful, to have a sense of purpose. So no matter what lot you are given in life, be thankful to God who gave it to you. I know all of the adults here know this, but I want to emphasize it to kind of like some of the younger generation. What work God blesses people with, you are to never look down upon those people. Do you hear me? Never are you to look down on someone that has a job that you think is either beneath you or that is less than you. God gave them that job. You should treat them with honor and respect. I loved it at one day where I work. I was walking down the hall. Jeremy is our housekeeping guy. He comes by, gets the trash, the biohazard waste. Anyway, he's a nice guy. He has a son who's in high school. Anyway, so Jeremy and I talk a lot. And I was walking down the hall one day. Jeremy had his trash thing that he was pushing through the hallway. It's a covered thing, so nobody sees it. And he had stopped in the hallway and was talking to the CEO of the hospital like they were best friends. Hey, they were talking about a Colts football game. Hey, did you see the football game last night? Oh, they were just talking. And I was like, yes, this is the culture I want to be in, where it doesn't matter what position you have in that institution, you are considered valuable. Doesn't matter. You are valuable. God gave you that job, and you need to look at other people who have a job as that's what God gave them in life, okay? So you are to never look down upon those people. They are also God's children who deserve love and respect. And so it's kind of funny. I was sitting there, I was thinking, well, you know, except maybe telemarketers. I was thinking, well, I don't know. Maybe they do. I don't know. Telemarketers are on the fence with me. I don't know. But oh, I'm just so thankful for caller ID. I'm like, no, I'm not even going to answer it. But no, telemarketers, they're also people too. They're God's children. They also deserve love and respect, right? So I want to close with Ecclesiastes 3, 9 through 13. What profit has the worker from that in which he labors? I have seen the God-given task with which the sons of men are to be occupied. He has made everything beautiful in its time. Also, he has put eternity in their hearts. I love that, because we're not going to stop working. once we die, when we go to heaven, we're going to have jobs there too. We're going to love working for God. He's going to be the best boss ever, right? He's going to be the best boss ever. Also, he has put eternity in their hearts, except that no one can find out the work that God does from beginning to end. Exactly. I know that nothing is better for them to rejoice and to do good in their lives, and also that every man should eat and drink and enjoy the good of all of his labor. It is the gift of God. Labor is the gift of God, right? So don't let Satan deceive you. You have the life given to you by God. Enjoy all of it. All right. Our closing hymn is number 375, Work for the Night is Coming.